All right.
Yeah, and I feel my heart pumping.
Yeah.
Feel
Well,
that energy, boy.
it's
Charged
all
up.
about the. Yeah, let me turn up my volume. It's all about the spontaneous. The moment. 72. Um. Yeah. And one thing about not doing shows as often, which is not very often. Like I can't. Other than when we were traveling, like maybe a year ago, yeah, maybe a year back, year and a half. We always do at least 60.
60 a month.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
we do at least 60. Last month was the first big month we've had in a long time. But one thing about not doing so many, we get a lot of people into the vortex when we do have a show. So
Mm.
we're live. Everybody, welcome on the live and the replay. It's Monday morning. We skipped our morning show. There's a lot of integration going on. We got a beautiful, brave, beloved brother in the house. We're gonna get to know him, Brandon. And but right now, I'm gonna play the what do you call it? Intro. I'm
Intro.
gonna play the intro and allow people time to come in. We'll see you in a minute and 19 seconds.
Awesome. Stand up real fast.
What's happening, everybody? We got Brandon Stevens in the house, intergalactichippie.com. And we're going to be hearing more about that. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for your continued love and support and contributions that allow us to keep doing this by the seat of our pants every day, which is
Mm.
not a complaint because that's how the 5D works. We don't have a savings account anymore. We don't have a savings account energetically in any capacity because we have everything we need. And I just want to say that. And also, I want to keep announcing this because we're not posting it for reasons you might be able to figure out. And that's that David Icke uh, was scheduled, in November, but he had to cancel all of his stuff through the end of the year. He is coming on in January. We're going to release the date 2 or 3 days before. But just so everybody knows, you can watch that show and any of these shows on sologynetwork.com. And if you haven't gone to our website, we still have a lot of work to do on it, but there's quite a bit of stuff, interactive stuff that you can engage. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So,
Wow.
Brandon, I asked Morgan last night, do you know this guy? But, she's the producer, and pretty much, her and our other team members have a sensitivity for who to bring on, and we don't ask questions. I just show up. But I want to thank you for coming in and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence and sharing your energy.
Yes, sir. Well, I just want to thank you very much for having me on the word of others. Because, like you said, you don't know me, I don't know you. Shout out to Heather if you're watching. Heather, thank you so much for connecting me with Todd and Morgan. I really appreciate it. So, thank you for
What
rooting
Heather
for me.
was it? What Heather was it? I
Heather
just
Houston.
Oh, Heather Houston. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Heather's been yeah, she's been in the field for quite some time. She's one of those that kind of stands in the background
Mm.
but supports. There's so many like that. There's just so many. So, the famous question. I don't know if you ever watch the show, but when we have someone new on, I like to ask them, how it all started. Did you have a typical wake up experience, or were you always just weird?
Man, that's a great question. I've always been weird, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
it wasn't until, I began the awakening process that I realized that there was a reason for my weirdness and that I'm not here to be like everybody else. In order to do things that have never been done, you got to kind of vibrate how it's never been vibrated before.
That's right.
So I would say that the majority of my life has been spent vibrating in a way that has not necessarily gone with the status quo. Uh, and at the same time, I've been able to incorporate myself well in various groups. I get along well with everybody. Even though I'm a little weird and quirky, it tends to not be too off-putting to others who just aren't there with me.
Well, you're with all the weirdos now, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, it feels good to be
This
with
whole
my soul
community is like
tribe.
that. So,
What up,
and
Star?
so did you have like what did like most of the people that come on here, myself included, knew they had something when they were younger, and of course, in retrospect, as things occur in the present and down the road, you start to look back. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But most of them say I had a certain sensitivity, a higher sensitivity as a little kid, and it was not supported, not to anybody's discredit, but simply because we were the odd ones out, and so then the story usually goes, I suppressed it. I was told my imaginary friends weren't real. I was told that whatever, uh, and so they kind of suppressed it. Then they go into, say young adulthood, kind of into the matrix, and then boom, something happens. Traumas, accidents, deaths, just different things. And there was on or about 2012. There's kind of a reawakening. I call it a reawakening versus an awakening. Did you have anything like that occur?
Well, I would say one of the first few spiritual awakenings I had came through addiction. Like you said, you try to suppress stuff and you don't really know how to deal with your trauma. And I got very good at creating different masks. Like I said, I fit in well with every group. Well, that's because I had a mask
Yeah.
that fit perfectly with every group. And I was very good at chameleoning. Uh, I got to a certain point. My parents, I was raised in a, middle class home. My mom and dad are still together, 40 some years. And they were, a bit overprotective growing up. I wasn't really able to go out and sow my wild oats. So when I went to college, I kind of went nuts on the freedom and tried almost every drug I could get my hands on. And I got myself arrested and I got myself into all kinds of trouble. Um, but everybody that I was around was at the same phase of life as me, so I didn't really see it as a problem.
Yeah.
Fast forward a couple years, I got into some 12-step group type stuff and
Yeah.
went to rehab and found myself, at the ends of a pretty bitter painkiller addiction. And I
Wow.
started to do some 12-step work. I started to peel away the layers, and I also, started to, at that time, go to church for the first time in my life ever. And, I got acquainted with Christianity and got acquainted with the gospel and was still going to 12-step meetings and very much involved in 12-step fellowship. That was the first spiritual awakening I would say that I had. That was probably about 10 years ago or so.
Mm.
Over the course of the past 10 years, many things have happened and changed. Since then, I feel that I've internalized what I learned from the 12 steps,
Yeah.
and I felt called about 5 years ago or so to step away from 12-step fellowship.
Yeah.
I was actively sponsoring people. I had probably about 8 years under my belt of
You went in full bore.
I was full bore, all in
Yeah.
conventions, sponsorship, sponsees, the whole thing. But then slowly but surely, I just, spirit just started to guide me like this God of my understanding that I found out. And at that point, my idea of God and the God within was where it was. It's grown. But at
Right.
that point, I started to say, this God, this higher power that I found that these 12 steps have gotten me in touch with, that higher power is capable of all things,
Right.
including, you know, And I want to tread lightly because I respect the 12-step rooms. And I want to say that there was a point in my life when they absolutely saved me.
Absolutely.
They're
Yeah.
not for everybody. What I'm seeing, there's more than one way to recover, and recovery is very personal
Yeah.
and it's very individual. So I will say that I have nothing negative to say about the 12 steps or anybody that seeks that way on their own personal journey.
It's I had my own journey that with similar attributes to your own, which part of that included 12 steps and rehab. Uh, you know, first of all, the first, I guess, bridge for me in my early 20s was, how do you bridge metaphysics or spirituality with Western religion? Because
Mushrooms.
there is a thread of truth in all these philosophies and religions away from the dogma. And one of those, really, the key author was Emmett Fox, who wrote Sermon on the Mount and Power Through Constructive Thinking and many, many other books. He was a Christian, but he was a metaphysician. And his work is the basis of the 12 steps. And I found that out later. The other thing I'd say on that, too, and I totally, honor and respect the honor and respect you're giving to the 12 steps. It never really resonated with me. I kind of did my own 12 steps before I went into the 12 steps. So when they said take a fearless moral inventory, I said I've been doing that for 2 years on the streets, living homeless. But some things that serve us don't, they get you to a certain place. It doesn't take anything away from the value or the invaluability of it, but it's not what might get you to the next level. And that sounds like what you were going through. Like you kind of had to come to Jesus meeting, with the universe and said, okay, it's time for you to expand.
It was very much so a crisis of faith at the time. Now, when I had first gotten into recovery, the first go round, I did so because the drugs that were helping me started to give me depression and anxiety
Yeah.
attacks.
Yeah.
So I was on an antidepressant for about 15 months, just getting out of rehab. This was 2008 or 9. And the panic attacks stopped, but enter that zombie state of no real ups or downs. And at that time I was going to therapy once a week. I had a job, I wasn't doing drugs, I was exercising. All of the things that were causing my life to be unmanageable were being handled. So I went off of the antidepressants and went about my life. Now fast forward to the point when I started to have this crisis of faith where I genuinely felt like I was being called away from the 12-step rooms.
Yeah.
At that point in time, my identity was so largely based on being a person in recovery, a
Yeah.
recovering addict, alcoholic, that the thought of leaving those rooms and leaving the safety net
Yeah.
of fellowship, and especially in the rooms, a lot of the times, right in the AA literature, it says, for the alcoholic, to drink is to die. So I had it in my mind that this was quite a risky endeavor that I was about to embark upon. I was seeing a therapist at the time, and I discussed it with her. I discussed it with 2 or 3 people in the rooms that I genuinely valued their friendship and that I would have been devastated if I would have lost their support. And I got the support of my wife, and I talked with her as well. Coming up on 12 years of marriage next month.
Wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. So my crisis of faith was bringing about, no, at the same exact time. So I have identity as a person in recovery, right? I work a strong program of recovery. I'm also in a church at this time as like a young leader in the church. So I have all these labels on me that define my worth. I'm a community leader, and I'm not doing the drugs and the bad stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it was at that same time that the gospel of Christianity, as I had understood it based on the way it was taught to me up in that point, was that heaven is coming later,
Yeah.
and that there's something outside of myself that is going to come here and help me because
Yeah.
I'm lacking right now.
Yeah.
And through the 12-step work that I did and through my relationship with God, I discovered that there is no separation between the
Exactly.
creator and I. We're one and the same. I am that I am. and there's no savior that's going to come and
Right
scoop
on.
me out of something or take me somewhere later. I got
Right on.
hit with that 5D blast of now is the only moment that truly ever exists. There is no before.
When
There is
did this
no
happen?
after. Heaven is here now. And I started
Absolutely.
to read the gospel through those eyes. And for the first time in my entire life, I started to actually understand the message that Jesus was teaching his disciples, which never was copy me. It was what I am, you also are.
Yeah.
So that rocked my world, and it caused me to want to leave the rooms and, cue the panic attacks and anxiety again. Because now, if I'm not an up and coming church leader and a person with a strong program of recovery, who am I?
Yeah.
Couple that with the fear that to drink is to die. I was very, very nervous when I cautiously took that first drink.
Yeah. How long ago was this?
This was about 5 years now.
Okay, so this is like 2015.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, this is good stuff, you know. And I've said this many times in 2,500 shows. My wife has told me since I met her 5 years ago, a copy is a copy is a copy. And if you really look at the construction of, the universe, you can say any of the grids, Christ conscious grid, divine union grid, or if you look at the false matrix, there is a pattern to it all, right? And so, like, if I listen to your story, I'm seeing so many people in 2020, and I don't take myself out of that category. I speak as I'm part of it too, because I'm human, divinely human.
Yeah.
But that is the labels. Like, what's the difference between you 5, 6 years ago coming out of the groups, coming out of the stature that you had as somebody who was very visible, a leader, right? In the church, in the groups, sponsoring people. This was part of your identity.
Yeah.
And then the universe comes in and says, hey, pal, it's time to let that stuff go. Well, I've watched it happen this year, this phenomenal year, 2020, with people, and the labels that are being removed are healer, uh, even starseed. And you know what I mean, with the certain connotation, way shower with a certain connotation. Uh, I'm connected to such and such divine essence. I'm from such and such planet. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from what might be true there, but just as you found out that these labels and identities were limiting the God that you are, I think, the next time somebody comes up to me and says, well, I'm such and such connected to Kuan Yin firsthand, I'm going to say I am too. I am everything. And,
Yes.
and I think this has been a big part of 2020 because we have been asked right up to today. We have been asked to let go of everything. And I've watched a phenomenal transformation with many, many energy practitioners over this year who modified and gave up modalities and processes and patterns and behaviors and became even a more open conduit to personal transformation within themselves and their clients.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 2020 has been the great equalizer. It's
Mm.
leveled us all to the same, and it's really peeled away those layers of false identity that are just like a nice little blankie in a baba, like
Yeah,
this is
right.
who I
The
am. I'm so
pacifier.
comfy in this, and
It's
it
a
just
pacifier. I got to
pacifies.
ask you this too. Now, because we haven't really talked of too much, obviously. But for quite a while, there are a lot of narratives, obviously, about ascension over the last few years. And one of those that seems to be showing its face now is recall, memories. A few years ago, you heard a lot about past lives. Oh my God, I was this in a past life, and I was that in a past life, and that's kind of died down. Then there was the connections with the galactics, and you might say the future, and that's kind of it's not as loud as it used to be. But what I'm getting at is it's like all this information, all this code, all these memories are starting to come in at warp speed.
Hmm.
And I wonder, have you experienced any of that? And when I say memories, I know that sounds very traditional, and that's not the way I mean it.
Yeah.
What I mean is really code, like these intuitive poundings of energy that come in,
Yeah.
and you're like, "What the hell was that? What the hell was that?" And the universe is like going, "You don't need to know. It's in there, and when you need it, it'll be available to you." Have
Yeah.
you experienced anything like that?
I have. So about 2 years ago now, since COVID, the entire last year just went by in a flash. 2 years ago, I was working at a holistic healthcare practice. Uh, there was a primary care physician, physical therapy, Reiki, yoga, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, vitamin therapy, the whole nine. And I was doing a bit of health coaching. I have clients just like this, face to face, one on one for an hour, just intuitive life coaching and things like that. And I also was doing the medical marijuana education.
Yeah.
That was one of our main things there. So part of my job was also to help clients into and out of the hyperbaric oxygen chamber, which is basically like a long, skinny tent that you lay in and you get zipped in. Now you're
Wow.
zipped in this thing and it fills up with air, it pressurizes, and it's designed to push the free oxygen that's in your blood that normally doesn't get pushed deep into the tissues. It pushes that free oxygen deep into areas that don't normally get it. So it's good for brain health, injury healing, all types of stuff. Well, you're zipped in this thing with three zippers for an hour. Now, I'm prone to a wee bit of claustrophobia, I would say, right? I never got in the tank at that point. I would put my head in there and clean it, right? But I would always feel very claustrophobic at the thought of even getting in there at all. But I never really knew why. Well, one moment I was in there cleaning it and I got really hot and my heart started pounding and I had this flash, this vision of just like, have you ever heard of the Brahma bull from like Roman times? The
Yeah.
Brahma bull, for those that don't know, is basically picture the Wall Street bull statue.
Yeah.
It's a statue of a bull big enough that a person could fit in. And what they used to do to martyr people, well, they would probably say it was putting the person out of their misery. But apostates or heresy, they would put these people inside the Brahma bull, and they would light a fire underneath of this bull, and the person would, in essence, be cooked alive.
Yeah.
Well, I had a flash of being inside this bull, and the whole narrative came to me. I had a wife and children on the outside that were looking in at me, like knowing I was in there, getting burned alive, and I felt trapped, and it was so real and so strange, and it was in an instant. And I pulled my head out, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Now, right around that same time, I was having some contention with my boss. I felt that, and it might have been ego stuff on my end, but I felt that I wasn't being properly utilized or that I wasn't being. So, long story short, another flash one day, sitting face to face with my boss across the table, it came to me that in a past life, he had been the king that had put me in the Brahma bull. And the argument that we were having right now in 2019 about work stuff actually went much deeper
Yeah.
beyond this lifetime. And
Continuation.
I vocalized it to him. I said, "Listen, you killed me in a past life." He's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "You put me." I said, "You martyred me." And
Oh,
and I said, "And I feel like right now that our relationship, I said, I feel like, you're either about to fire me or I'm about to quit. And it feels that way right now." And actually bringing up this past life flash that I had had allowed us to heal our relationship here in 2019 last year.
yeah.
And I think that it heals multiple timelines when we're able to tap into that
Absolutely.
stuff presently.
Yeah. Everything's connected. One of the things I noticed too, of course, with myself, and then even observing others, we're all conduits, and we get that connection, and then the stuff starts flowing in, and you say things or write things that you don't even realize what you're saying at the time, right? And then
Mhm.
later on, you kind of embody it, I guess, is what happens.
Mm.
And but I used to hear, well, what would happen is it would come out of my mouth and be like, oh my God, this is one of these moments, and the past, the present, and the future just merged.
Mm.
And they typically were moments of a higher alignment, and I learned later, being married to a practitioner, who's been downloading for 20 years, that it's affecting all timelines and dimensions, and even from the present moment. Really, it is the present moment. Everything we do, walking into a convenience store, greeting a clerk, the vibrations we're sending out, it's affecting every timeline and dimension, and there's no doubt about that. I wonder if that's why so many of these memories are starting to come in, or the code is because there's been a lot of alignment and a lot of work put into it. I pulled in something, a lot of stuff the last week or so. One of the things that I was getting was that there's no stopping this, that there's too much awakeness or awareness, and that by virtue of that alone, it doesn't matter what the hell we're looking at in terms of the Matrix and Illuminati or whatever boogeyman we want to think about or create with our imagination. There's too much gone down already. Too much awareness has been achieved. And it's like a snowball going down a mountain, and we're at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hell of a ride.
Yeah, a tipping point has definitely been reached. And I love what you said about, we're healing multiple timelines wherever we go. And that's one of the major things that I took away from my time in organized religion. The pastor, who was a good family friend to this day, really drove home that church is not a building. He said, "We are the church,
Yeah.
and we are on mission wherever we go." And that's what I've taken away from this, that I am I am the light of the world, and I shine wherever I go. That's standing in line at the grocery store. That's when I smile at the clerk, at the post office. That's when I hold the door for somebody. That's all of that stuff. That that's my ministry.
Yeah.
My life has become my ministry, and everyone that I interact with has become like the mission field, I guess you would say. And
Yeah.
at the same time, coming to that understanding has given me a peace that I never had before, because when I was out there actively trying to make disciples, I always felt this pressure, like I was never doing enough, like
Yeah.
I didn't save enough souls, or I didn't get the message out there good enough or to enough people. And now I don't have to do a thing. I just show up and stuff changes because of who
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah. You're like a tuning fork.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
And it's amazing too, because the level of people stepping up and coming out, is increasing rapidly as well, particularly women. Uh, particularly these women that have been doing this stuff in private, for 10, 15, 20 years, doing grid work, downloading, anchoring, embodying, you know, and they're starting to come out. And it's just like, it's the same energetic pattern or outcome as what you're describing. When one person steps up, they light the room up.
Mm,
So, like, in the physical or the energetic field, both. Like, so when I've seen it happen so many times on this show, these women, they come out, and some men, and I've never been on a video before. I've never done a show like this before. I'm scared, shiftless, and then they come on, and it's just like, boom, you just watch it. It's almost like a baby being birthed by a projectile force versus just, coming out a little bit at a time. I mean, it's amazing what's happening, and it won't be stopped. It
yeah,
can't, no matter what.
yeah, yeah. It's fantastic. Even so, like you said, even for those in I don't even know what you would call, in 5D, like the
Yeah,
shifts continue to happen. The
yeah,
layers continue to peel away daily for me
yeah,
of who I thought I was and what I thought
yeah,
I needed to be, and the truth of who I really am is just so much simpler than what I thought. So when I left that holistic healthcare center last March, it was because of COVID. COVID struck, the practice shut down. I went on unemployment, and I really had the time and the resources, thank God, thank source, thank all of it, for unemployment, because I was able to not have to worry about my family, but also go into my cocoon. And since March, I have been in a straight up cocoon, and it's been fantastic because I've disconnected from all of these sources that I realized I had myself plugged into. I
Yeah.
had myself plugged into what, this group of people thought about me, or what this needed to happen. And I was so drained all the time, just spinning my wheels, just trying to make something happen. And then when nothing could happen, and I just sunk into what actually is, man, that's when some really amazing things happen. And that's when I launched, uh, you know, I, my new business that I'll talk about later on. But I mean, I did a 12 episode podcast over COVID. Um, I make music also. I got myself certified as a Spotify artist. So I have a couple songs on Spotify now. I just like did all these areas for me.
Yeah.
And I'm more aligned now with what I was really supposed to be doing the whole time.
Yeah.
I realized that I'm not a 9 to 5er. I can't
No,
show
none
up
of us are.
can't show up and work for someone else's agenda and then have nothing left
We
over
can't even
for
be
me.
on a schedule.
I
I
can't.
wonder how we're going to do this show in 2021.
Mm,
Like, we schedule out a month and a half, and it's like that's just not, it's not even part of, and I was going to say 5D, but I think we're going a lot further. I think we're going 6, 7, 8, 9. You know, it's just another label, just another, badge on the chest. But what I'm saying is, I don't know how this is going to work, because nothing that came out of this dualistic realm is going to be able to come with us into these higher frequencies. And I was told the same thing you were 9 years ago. When I reawoke, I was told, I said, what the hell do I do with all this? They're giving me this download. I'm having these apparitions and visitations, and I'm going, what do I do? And they said, well, we're going to give you the pieces, you put it together, but going forward, anything that you do can't be anything that's been done.
mm,
It has to be new. And that I've watched that unfold over 9 years, and that applies to every aspect of my experience and my journey, and those that I observe that are elevating this unity consciousness, this Christ consciousness, this Trinity consciousness. They're doing stuff that's never been done before. And I think this is where we're going to be challenged now. Like, do I have to obey these lawless laws?
mm,
Do I need to get a driver's license? Do I need to have a bank account? Do I need to have insurance? I mean, there is no in between here. It's an all or nothing proposition. And I don't mean to get radical and sound like an anarchist, not that there's anything wrong with either one of those things, but I was told, do not take out any more loans. I ran Sology on loans for 2 years, and I don't know how I could have done without it. But at one point, I was told, do not take another one out.
mm,
Uh, Things like government, what we might call government compliance. It's like wearing a mask, like getting a vaccine, like paying taxes. What the fuck is that? I mean, we're in a realm where we have been told you go to work 9 to 5, you work for 40 years, you retire, and then basically your retirement's sucked up by the medical industry. And as you're going out the door, you got to pay for your own damn funeral. Like, I think the time has come, especially with these pressures, are catalysts such as masks and quarantines and vaccines and viruses and elections and whatever, that people are going to start going the same route that you and I did and everyone else here, which is I choose me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. About I guess two years ago, maybe a little before that, I was working in a public school system as an assistant teacher, and I was really getting into the starseed situation, the starseed world, quite heavily. they were contacting me, you could say, for sure. And then one time during this meditation, so I always felt like I was supposed to write a book. Like I have a blog, I'm an author, but like an actual published book, like a
Hmm.
book. And I was doing this meditation, and in the meditation, it came to me that there's this book that's already written. Like the book that have visualized is already written, but it it's like written in a different language that I don't have the key for, right? So
Yeah.
I was told in this meditation, like I need to like translate the key code to get this information. So I was like, well, that's interesting. So a little while later, I was messing around with this. Well, we're all adults here, a sexual energy transmutation exercise
Yeah.
where you work with the sexual energy, you bring yourself to the brink of an orgasm but not over the brink, and then you do this for a while, and then you meditate that energy, up to your third eye and down to your navel for like 10 minutes. Well, I was doing that and I brought it up to my third eye, and then it went up above that, and then it went to what I thought was through my crown. And then after that, it actually bursted through my crown.
Yeah.
And this like rainbow Wi-Fi symbol looking thing appeared over top of my head in this meditation. And a rainbow stream of information came down the whole chakra system. And suddenly I had this meditation. It entered where, so I was working at a school at the time in a behavioral room. So it's kids that are having behavioral issues and, pretty bad stuff. And sometimes we would even have to restrain them for their own safety.
Holy crap.
Yeah, we would have to take them into what's called a calming room. And sometimes we would have to restrain them so they didn't hurt themselves or others. So I would sit in this calming room with these kids for hours sometimes and just be the space for their emotions in a judgment-free zone. Just allow them to be. I didn't try to change it. I didn't try to judge it. I just, you're upset and that's okay. And so in my meditation now, all of a sudden I'm in a calming room with a child, and the child has the key code, the translating key code to this book, and I'm in there talking with him. And what I realized was the kid was afraid. The child was afraid that if he gave me the keys to success, in essence, that I would be irresponsible with them. And what
Mm.
I realized was I was doing my own inner child healing in
I
this
was going to say
meditation
that.
to
What a
take
gift.
away my
Yeah.
own fear of success that I've had my entire life.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
like powerful, powerful stuff over the past couple years that has completely altered my course. Around that same time, I was told you're supposed to start your own business and work from home. You're not supposed to work for anybody else, right? So I started in like a flurry of 24 hours. I made a website, and I came to, in essence, and I was the owner of an LLC that was like registered with the state, and I started to work instead of like my guides had said at my house for myself. I took my business and brought it to a holistic healthcare center because I didn't think I could do it on my own, and I thought I needed the referrals
You're
and I
right.
thought I needed a paycheck. So I spent another year or so out of alignment, but I learned so much. I learned
Yeah.
so much about how to be busy and how to be busy productively and how to budget your time and how to speak with people, and just so much about my own psychic abilities and gifts that when COVID struck and I was on unemployment and I was forced to, come to a grinding halt with any momentum that I had built and start from scratch, in essence, I said, never again.
Yeah.
I hear you this time, and I'm going to start from the ground up, and I am going to do it all on my own, and
Yeah.
I'm going to do whatever it takes to be successful, and I'm going to manage that. I'm not going to be afraid to win.
Yeah. Well, it's our natural nature, which makes it really weird too, because, you know, uh, now we've hit this phase now, which is to me beyond quantum. It's like everything has happened, but we're having to get used to what we really are, which is weird because you have the so-called pressure, or uh, I don't know, what would you call it? The impact or potential impact of a system that we have been indoctrinated into, and so we're used to it. You know, the matrix is almost like an addiction. It's almost like a comfort zone. right? Like we have our own personal ones, right? Like we don't want to give up because they're kind of like our pacifier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting into this phase now where it's beyond quantum, and it's like, okay, so you've just made this declaration. I've done the same. But then I wake up tomorrow and I'm like, okay, let's get to work. And they're like, no, 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 no. We have a new truth for you today.
Mm.
Don't get attached to anything. Whatever you seek is here. Spontaneously, intuitively, creatively. Imagination is key. Courage is key. But it's a very much a presence in the present moment type of machine, kind of process. Uh, so this is where I see people, I see myself, especially the last 2 or 3 months of this year so far, has been like every morning you wake up, there's a new truth. And I think another really good example, and you hit on it with this experience with this child, right? Uh, I've had many energy practitioners come on here. And one of the things that I've heard from a considerable amount this year has been every time I go into a session as a practitioner, it's I'm benefiting.
Mm.
And they're not just paying it lip service. I can say the same thing about this show. I feel like I'm in a session, not as a practitioner, as a client,
Yeah.
if that's the right word. But every single experience is an expanding experience if my field is open or proportionate to how wide my field is open, my heart is open. But that to me, when I hear that come out of an energy practitioner's mouth, is a huge characteristic of the new humility, the one you can't fake,
Yeah.
and the one that we can start to share. Uh, and it's not through words; it's through, like you said, you walk in a room now, and it's like boom, you don't have to say a word.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I was taught at one point by a mentor that we can be thermometers or thermostats. And basically, a thermometer reflects the temperature that's already present in the room.
Yeah,
Most people are thermometers.
yeah,
As leaders, as light workers, as starseeds, as energy practitioners, merfolk and fairy, like whatever you identify yourself as, you're different for a reason. And you're called to be a thermostat.
yeah.
A thermostat affects the temperature of a room and can
Absolutely.
alter it accordingly. And to do that, you have to have discernment because the person in charge of the thermostat is the one that can tell if it's too cold or too hot. And
Yeah,
that's very relative to who's in the room, what season it is, what time of day it is. So discernment to be in charge of the thermostat is quite important.
yeah. Well, I think what you're describing, I love that analogy, but what you're describing metaphorically, and here we go too. Here we go because there's another added part to it. So what you're describing is this conversion or transformation of the empath. The empath. I mean, you go back, like even when you came in 2015. I mean, if I go back to 2013, 2014, all the groups, the empath groups, all the commentary about empaths living with narcissists, and how do I deal with all this information and emotion that's coming? How do I know if it's mine? So the empath was almost like a weakling. And now what you describe, your friend describes, your mentor is that transformation where it becomes a power, a superpower, right?
Yeah.
But then you have this Trinity element now, the triad element, and that is that the reality is the thermostat and the thermometer are one and the same,
Hmm.
right? And so we don't have to be one or the other. In fact, we can't be one or the other. It's outside the realm of creation,
Hmm.
and
Yes.
so we actually hold both,
Yes.
and that even makes it more powerful. Uh, so, and here's the other thing too. I have to say, because you inspire me, is I for 9 years I've been I've had people every day tell me you need to write a book, you need to and I tried a few times, and I'm a writer. I've written all my life, but there's something about your story about the codes. Like, I don't even know if books are even going to be applicable. Maybe this is the book. Maybe Todd's book is doing 2,500 or however many shows it ends up being before I transition. Maybe your book is the music, or maybe it's the videos, or, there's something about taking this thing all the way, which is going to be dictated by our belief system, each one of us individually, that can I affect the entire universe, every timeline and dimension, certainly by virtue of that, the entire Earth grid, by sitting in this room, turning this camera off, going into meditation, and infusing into the universe these codes, revelations, and epiphanies that come through me as I am the conduit that I am.
Yeah.
I mean, this is getting. It's like those. I'm a little older than you, but those things that kids have, and they're gray, and you have a pen and you write on them, and then you pull the thing up and it all goes away.
Yeah.
They're like that. Like, so you wake up the next day and you're like, oh my God, I kicked ass. I did 6 shows yesterday, and this happened and that happened. Somebody was on the screen, they disappeared. And then you wake up the next day and it's like,
yeah,
like here.
The present moment makes all things new.
Yeah.
Everything we thought we were and, feared we might become in the now just falls away. Yeah.
Where do you live?
I'm in New Jersey in the United States.
Yeah. What part?
Near Atlantic City, South Jersey.
Yeah. I've been there. Yeah, I lived in Camden.
Okay.
Etch a Sketch. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah. I lived in Camden. I went down to Atlantic City and I jumped in the ocean, and it had to be like February.
Wow.
March. Yeah. It was cold as hell.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, I've come all this way. So I gave my friend my phone and said, click live. I got to find that old video. But that was cold.
I'll bet. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was
Yeah.
EMT for 3 years in Atlantic City recently.
Wow.
And oh my gosh, that was crazy. But we did some standby for the polar bear plunge one January 1st or 2nd. All those guys were out there just taking the dip.
That's a powerful, I mean, I've been all over the country, probably about almost 40 states. And there's obviously, we're portals. I mean, we're power centers, all of us, but there are parts of the country that are obvious power points. And of course, we know the Sedonas and the Shastas, and all that. But some of these more densely populated areas have a lot of energy and a lot of opportunity and a lot of expansiveness potential with it for an individual. And it's also like a great place to learn how to walk that soul highway, that 0 point. And work with energies of, let's say, dark and light, to use human adjectives. I had an indoctrination in New York City for about 4 months, and I thought I'd done a lot of work, and I had, but walking the streets of New York City for 4 months with, virtually, no money, nothing, and staying with friends and whatever I could do, boy, you sure learn a lot. There's as much, or I'm going to even say probably more, potential for finding the light within yourself through the darkness, or what you might deem as darkness, or the fears, the things that bring fear to you. So that's like a crash course.
Yeah.
New Jersey, New York, really the Northeast in general.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a different type of energy over here for sure.
Yeah.
Density. We're super densely populated. That's interesting.
Absolutely are.
Yeah.
Absolutely are. My old career was in home improvement on a national level, and 55% of our business, regardless of what big boxes I was representing, were in the Northeast.
Mm,
So there's a lot of power. There's a lot of energy over there. You wouldn't think so, but there is.
yeah.
I mean, for me, there has been. So tell me about your. First of all, tell me about your podcast. Now, you were doing some podcasts about
Yeah, so
um,
I have a
COVID.
YouTube channel
Okay,
and a podcast of the same name called The Snooze Button Wake Up Show.
hang on. Now, is that a website or YouTube?
So wherever you stream podcasts, you
Uh,
can find the Snooze Button Wake Up Show weekly podcast. If you're looking in YouTube, if you put Snooze Button Wake Up Show channel, it will pop right up. It's a picture of an alarm clock being smashed. Uh, so the Snooze Button Wake Up Show podcast was basically just a variety show. I did comedy skits and I did social commentary and I did music and I had guests sometimes and I made the commercials for it. Like I just kind of had fun
really?
with the app and made this 12 episode podcast over COVID. Uh, the Snooze Button Wake Up Show channel on YouTube was what I thought was going to be my way to kind of bridge the 3D, 5D reality, where I could start to talk about the things that a lot of people in my immediate social circle just weren't into or open yet. Like I really feel like a fish out of water very much in my area, but I am connecting with those, and like minds are starting to join up, which is good to get some support. But that channel was designed as a place for me to put these videos out that I was doing, talking about the now, talking about the present moment and ascension and star seeds and that type of thing. Uh, so during the COVID, recently actually, I I learned how to do starseed birth chart reports.
Hmm.
So ever since I was little, I've been fascinated with the sky, just looking up at the stars and the planets and what's up there, what's beyond this, just that kind of stuff. And about 2 or 3 years ago, in the meditations and stuff, I started to realize that I am in fact a star seed, and my soul energy, goes beyond this incarnation, and that energy signatures from various lifetimes affect me here now, and that there's untapped dormant potential in me, wisdom and knowledge, from my galactic lineage that's there waiting for me.
Yeah,
So I just used my intuition and watched a bunch of YouTube videos, like which star seed are you? And
yeah,
based on the characteristics, I was like, I'm this, I'm that, and I'm this. Well, then I actually found out how to find the astrological alignments for certain star systems. So I started to do birth chart readings using natal astrology with my friends and family and a couple people. And they found it to be helpful in
yeah.
ways that I wasn't really surprised, but I was pleased. So on November 22nd of this year, in much the same way that I created my first website before, it was like 5 or 6 hours of just creative flurry. I completely redid my website. I made an Instagram. I made a YouTube channel. I made a Facebook page, all with the same name. It's intergalactichippie.com. Birth chart readings and resources for the awakening starseed. And I put it out there. And uh, I follow this one blogger, Kristen Morelli. She's like a musician blogger, and she always posts ways to boost your social media. So, following one of her simple suggestions, she said, if you want to grow your business on Instagram, follow accounts that are like yours, find your niche, find accounts that are like yours, and just follow random people that follow them. She said you can follow up to 500 people a day without Instagram blocking you. So I began to do that.
Wow.
You follow random people that are in your niche that are likely to follow you back. And what I was finding was that about 17 to 18% of the people were following me back. So 3 days into this experiment, I had over 300 followers on my brand new Instagram
Far
account.
out.
So since
Far
November 22nd, I'm actually coming up on 1,000 followers
far
right
out, man.
now.
Keep going with this. Somebody's asking, can you post that? I'll be right back.
Sure.
I got to take care of something.
Okay. Should I keep talking or no? Maybe Todd had to use the restroom. I'm not sure. Heather, if you're watching, hi. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you. Hey.
Sorry about that.
I did a little song and dance while you were gone. Jazz.
Did you really? I was going to ask you, what kind of music are you doing?
Hip hop.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I did probably about almost 100 music videos.
You did?
Yeah. And I call them SOULSPEAKS. They're not rapping and they're not singing. Although you can, some of it's kind of like spoken word. Some of it's kind of like got some melody. Some of it does. Maybe some people say it's conscious rap. Yeah, I'd love to see what you're doing with that.
I'm in a light body suit that'll chop you with the root. Chakras spin round like a hula hoop. You need proof? Peep the aura before you start dissing. Or see my team whiz in from the nearest star system. I wish you'd listen like my kids when I tell them where to put the dishes. For the 1000th time, follow the signs. Everything's in line. Limelight's divine. Like the light lime green, I mean, I be a multi-dimensional speaking being peaking in human being camo fatigues. Eating Peking duck, a flock of birds, a lot of nerve, not a lot of words, a lot of swerve. Hit the curb. Thought I was a lay, but I'm a hers man. Got those chips to dip for Sertan. Stacks like Pringles, and I'm the whole can. Just a little something.
I'm digging it.
Yeah.
Very cool. So let me ask you something else too. What about, so you said you've been married 12 years.
Yes, sir.
So your partner was there for this entire conversion, this transformation.
My wife is the most ride or die woman I have ever met in my entire life. So here's a little, we got married December 17th, 2008.
Okay.
I entered rehab on January 11th, 2009.
Wow.
Weeks after our marriage, it all came out that I had.
So what about like when you came home and said, "Hey, honey, I'm a starseed"?
Oh my gosh! So
how did that all go? Like ascension talk and that type of stuff.
She's been with me every step of the way, and every step of the way, it's been weird. When I first got into recovery and was doing the 12-step thing, that was weird and different. Like she didn't really know anybody that was doing that. And I told her all about the 12 steps and about this God of my understanding and the whole thing. Then when I got into church, she wasn't into church either before that. Followed me into that, started going to church, got involved in, reading the Bible and prayer and all this stuff. So when I started to get into the starseed stuff and kind of had the conversation like, hey, honey, I'm an alien, like,
right.
in so many words, she wasn't all that surprised. This was a new level of different and weird for her. But I had been talking with her about like ascension topics and 3D, 5D, like things like that before the extraterrestrial starseed stuff happened.
Yeah.
So she's been with me on the journey, and she's very much going through her own awakening process. And we're very much on the same page on our journey, just in very different. She is a public school teacher, and she's just different missions. That's all. We just have different missions and different niches.
Well, so much has been said about these relationships in, over the last few years. But one thing that seems to be consistent is the polarities. And a lot of times we think of polarities as, clean and dirty or dark and light, but it's not. It can be conventional versus unconventional. Typical and atypical. It can. I mean, she's going 9 to 5, and you're freelancing. I mean, there's so many subtle polarities that are involved in these relationships, be they same sex, be they romantic, be they opposite sex, be they family, business. I mean, the same dynamics hold true for every single one-on-one human interaction.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be interesting to talk more about that with you next time we get together, if you're open to it. If
Yeah,
you're open
absolutely.
to collaborating again,
Yeah, that would
we
be
can
fantastic.
certainly, after the first of the year, and hook
Yeah.
up again and maybe take some of these subjects a little bit deeper.
Yeah. Are you wrapping it up? I sense that maybe you're almost out of time. Are we
Yeah, yeah.
are
But
we
I want to
coming to
give
a
you,
close?
yeah, I'm going to wrap it up. But I want to give you some time here to do whatever you want to do.
Okay.
You've already gave us a little wrap, but I mean, some people do light language, they do blessings. You might have a little more commentary, and then certainly just to restate, I did put up what you were talking about on the YouTube and the podcast. But how can people get in touch with you? Where can they find you? And what offerings you might have in terms of products and services?
Certainly. Well, everyone can follow me if you've enjoyed what I've said and if any of it's resonated with you. And if you're on Instagram, I'm on Instagram at Intergalactic Hippie. You can find me on my website at www.intergalactichippie.com. And I also have a YouTube channel of the same name, Intergalactic Hippie. So I offer starseed birth chart readings to determine your galactic origins. So I offer a mini reading, which just confirms which star systems your energy signature has originated in. And then I offer an extended reading, which dives a bit deeper and describes traits and characteristics of that particular starseed, as well as how karma from those previous lifetimes may or may not be integrated by your ego in this lifetime. I also offer one-on-one virtual coaching via FaceTime or Skype or Zoom or whatever you like. And I actually just started messing around with t-shirt designs. So I have about 4 or 5 starseed, like alien cool type shirts on my website. And I just got an email that the test order that I ran for myself is on its way here. So next time you'll see me, I'll be wearing one of my intergalactic hippie shirts. So I'm
All
stoked
right,
about
man.
that. Let's see. Yeah, that's how you can get in touch with me. If you'd like to email me, it's intergalactichippie.com at Gmail. But all of my contact information is on my website, and that's probably the central hub that people should go to if they'd like to connect.
Right on. Right on. I think you're going to get an influx of people. That's usually what happens on this show.
That would be great, man. I'm so close to 1,000. I've never had 1,000 followers. Like that blows my mind that I'm close to 1,000 on Instagram, and it's just a matter of time, really. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's really
Yeah.
cool that there's a market for starseed birth chart readings, and I'm the type of person that I have to believe in what I'm doing. I have to care deeply about it to be motivated to do anything. I can't work on someone else's agenda. So I care deeply about this, and this combines helping and therapy and soul work and just everything that I'm about into one opportunity that's allowing me to provide for my family and provide a service that's actually helping people. So I
Right
couldn't
on.
be more thrilled.
Right on.
Yeah.
Sounds like a more and more common story that's occurring.
Yeah.
More and more people, and especially with, I mean, on one hand, businesses closing, industries closing, people losing jobs. I mean, even the schedule, the 9 to 5 thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like this COVID has been a divine orchestration that we all put together. If you really look at the energetics behind it, you couldn't ask for a better script.
This has been the best year of my life, hands down.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm
Right.
so grateful for 2020 and for COVID and for all of it because it's been, I never would have done the work that was required this year unless it was required. And it
Well, it
was.
would have been too easy. I mean, think about it. We've been somewhat, and through the conditioning and the programming, somewhat resistant to change anyway, because we've been kind of raised on uniformity. But had we been in our normal routines, it would have been a little bit more difficult. Not to mention these children. The children are starting to like you said, to walk into a room and the whole thing lights up. I mean, these children, even less than a year old, 1 and 2 and 3 years old, and certainly 8, 9, 10, 12, they're becoming, and what do you think's happened to them this year? Getting pulled out of school, being at home, playing in the backyard, doing their own. I mean, their creativity's got to be soaring. Their channel as a conduit to receive and give has got to be increasing, just because they're not being dumbed down. They're not being institutionalized. I mean, this is prolific, so
Yeah.
I'm not looking at 2021 yet, because there's still 17 days in 2020. And we all know that 17 days in 2020 could be like 17 years.
Yeah.
So everybody stay on their game.
For sure. For
It was a
sure.
pleasure meeting you. Thank you for
Can I-
coming in and sharing
can I tell you-
space.
Do I have time for a quick story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
So when I was doing the follow 500 people a day on Instagram thing to try to grow, again, people in my niche, but they were just random people I had never met before. Now, my previous social media strategy was never follow more people than follow you. I never wanted to follow more people than the amount of people that followed me, because I thought to be important, you had to look important. So I realized that was holding me back a lot. So now I just followed people, and I didn't care how big my numbers got. People started to message me. Now, in the past, I wouldn't really interact too much. If people messaged me, I would just, I don't know, but I wanted to be different this time. So this one person in broken English, this was the day before Thanksgiving, broken English messages me, hey, how are you? Where are you from? I'm from Gambia. Thank you for connecting with me. And I'm like, wow, Gambia, like the internet is amazing. I'm talking to a Gambian on Instagram. Like, this is incredible. Well, I didn't realize it at the time, but I kind of bragged and sort of put my foot in my mouth, because I assumed that everyone has enough to eat all the time. And I said, well, I'm doing fantastic, because tomorrow's Thanksgiving and it's an American holiday, and my family and I are going to have a really nice meal and spend time together. And he said, that's fantastic. I'm so happy that God has blessed you so abundantly, and have a great time with your family and enjoy your meal. And he said, for me, not so much. Like, we won't be celebrating. And I got to talking with this man, and it turns out that he is 24 years old, has 4 siblings under his care, and his father and mother both passed away. Now, I know there's a lot of West African scams out there, letters that get sent. I have this prince that's in jail, and if you send me $20,000, like, so that was in the back of my mind. Like, is this person trying to scam me? But then I realized that he didn't say anything about his situation until I kind of bragged about having more than enough to eat. Basically, he said, our landlord is about to kick us out. Our rent is $65 a month. We're behind. We don't have any food. Could you find it in your heart to get us a bag of rice, basically, is what he said, and some vegetables. Now, I'm like, okay, here comes the scam. What do you need? My bank account, right? You need my PIN number and my social security number. I talked with him for a day back and forth on Instagram, and I got to the point where my intuition was screaming at me that this was a legitimate need. And through a money exchanging app, I sent him a month's worth of rent and enough money for some rice. In the back of my mind, expecting that maybe it was a scam, but at this point, I was so impressed by the guy's commitment. If it was just a story, I mean, he sent me pictures of his family in different clothes on different days, of his land. I mean, it was as legit can look. But I also thought, how hard is it to download some pictures and share them, right? So I was still skeptical at this point. Well, I send the money via MoneyGram. You need photo ID to pick up money with MoneyGram. I sent the money to Gambia. 20 minutes later, I get an email saying that my money was picked up in Gambia by the name matching the name I sent it to with a photo ID. 20 minutes later, I get a picture of the same tall, thin African man that sent me pictures of his family in a big shed with giant bags of rice piled on top of one another. He's got one of them on his shoulder with the thumbs up. 20 minutes after that, he texts me and says, everyone in my village is praying for you. I gave some rice to a couple widows, and we all, everyone wants to know your name, right? So I I didn't really know what to make of it. I mean, we help people in our community like that when they're in need. So I thought, who's my neighbor? Who cares if it's across the planet? If someone needs something, then they need something. So he said, I want a video chat with you the next day. Can you download WhatsApp? And WhatsApp, you can video chat with anybody all over the world. And I thought, well, what kind of a scammer wants to video chat the next day? Like, that doesn't make sense. So the next day, I video chatted with Abduli. I met his siblings. They met my siblings, and he met my wife. He was so grateful for what we gave that tears were streaming down his face. Now, when his father died, his father owned a small plot of land. Abduli said, I have this land that's my father's. I need to fence it in, and then I can start to plant food. He said, right now, my only source of income is to go into the forest and chop firewood. And he sent me a picture of this crude axe that he has, and he's chopping firewood. He brings it to market to sell. But he also said that they're cracking down on that, and he could get fined or jailed even if he's caught doing this. So he said that if he can get this garden fenced in, then he'll be able to feed his family and sell some of the produce at the market. So I thought, wow, this is a young leader in Gambia that has the heart of a servant, that's looking out for widows, that's thinking about not only his family, but his whole village. And if I invest in him, it's like investing in a whole country. So I said, listen, I want to help you fence your garden as I'm able. Now, a garden, I'm thinking tomatoes, like a little garden, and a fence, he's calling it, right? Well, he gave me the price that the garden and the fence is going to cost, and I was kind of blown away, and I started to think maybe it was a scam again, even though I had seen him face to face, and he showed me his sisters and his brothers and everything. Well, the next day he sends me a video of this land, this garden that he has is a gigantic piece of property, and the fence that he needs is a 6-foot high concrete wall. He knows the cost of the materials and the cost of the contractors because his neighbor and childhood best friend, Alpha, is 3/4 of the way finished fencing in his property because he found an American sponsor through Instagram in California that sends him money through MoneyGram. Apparently, this is a lifeline for these people in this particular village. And I spoke with Alpha via WhatsApp. When they were at the land, Alpha came to help Abduli clear away some grasses and prepare the ground for the contractors to come after we had sent a little more money. And tears were streaming down Alpha's face because his childhood best friend had finally found his miracle, like Alpha had found. These people have nothing, nothing. And the gratitude and the joy that was in their hearts with nothing was humbling. And, I shared the story with my family, and my mom is just like, she can't believe it. She can't believe it's true. She's like, I never would have done that because I never would have believed. I would have thought I was being scammed. I never would have. I don't know what's going to come of this, but Abduli says, this is your home. He said, you own this land. We co-own this land, brother. He said, you now co-own land in Gambia. And because, of your kindness and generosity, we're going to have a source of income, and our village is going to do better. So that all happened just by a random me following people on Instagram and then being willing to connect with someone on a heart level and message them and ask them about their actual lives instead of just looking for what they could do for me, because I've been so self-centered for so long that people have only been means to an end as to how I can better myself. And I didn't want to do that anymore. And by making a heart connection with this person, I found like a new family.
Mm.
just this morning, I launched a GoFundMe page. You can read the entire story of it. It's called A Garden in Gambia. If
Hmm.
you just if this resonates with any of your listeners at all, go to GoFundMe and check A Garden in Gambia. And I wrote the story, and there's a section, if you feel led to, that you can donate. And we are going to help Abduli fence in his property. We are going to send them a Christmas package over the next couple days that probably won't get there for Christmas, but they need clothes, they need writing materials. His siblings don't go to school because there's no free education. It costs money to go to school. Abduli's only finished 10th grade. Um, so I don't know what this means and where we're headed, but that story alone has been like driving me lately. Like it's he's the last person I think about before I go to bed and the first person I think about when I wake up. Like I want to build this wall with my own hands. I want to help him. Like the contractors, he sent me a video of them. It's two guys with a pickaxe showing up to dig, and there's pictures on my GoFundMe page of Abduli, of his family, of the contractors with their pickaxes, of the property, of the land. Abduli sent me birth certificates from all four of his siblings and an official stamped piece of paper that says that the village elder transferred the land from Abduli's father's name to his name. And he knows how much scams happen. And he said,
Yeah.
I want to document every single piece of help that you give me so that you know that I'm not abusing it.
Yeah.
And it's really been a beautiful blessing for me and my family.
Well, I mean, the main thing is that you're following your discernment and you're putting it out there. So it's all about intention.
Yeah.
So, I'm not here to say one way or another. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
It sounds legit.
Yeah.
And that's not even the point to me. The point is discernment, intention, that's energy. So whether that energy is being, and let's just not use this example, but let's say in a different example, whether that energy is being, or let's just say the product of that energy is being used in a way that's not in alignment, it's still in alignment. There's
Yeah.
still, you can't defy the intentions of the heart of our intentions. You can't. So
And
it's
what
an
is a
absolute.
scam? What's a scam really? I sell birth chart readings
I
to
mean,
let people know.
it's relative. It's absolutely relative. So I mean, it's a great example. It's a great story. But you're right. What is a scam? I mean, how many people have I seen over the years raising hell about people that charge money and they're a light worker and they shouldn't do it? I've received messages. This is one reason, by the way, that we don't really promote anything on this. We don't market anything, and I don't consider this marketing. And certainly, I don't have any problem with you telling this story. But the problem is that once there was a time when we had people coming on here in the traditional tele summit fashion to basically do a dog and pony show and then sell like they're like an infomercial at the end of the show. We don't fucking do it. I'll just be straight with you. And when we do open it up a little bit, we get a lot of calls from people. Hey, can I come on now? Can I come on now? Come on. And so we try to stay away from it. This is a little bit different. To me, this is an individual story. There's a lot of messages within the story, but I think at the very core of it, it's an energetic force that's put out there to make that people will feel instant alignment with, or they'll feel very uncomfortable. And both of them serve equally, and that's how I feel about it. But with everything is that way. I'm sure that with the presence that you have on social media, that you have gotten a couple of naysayers, a little bit of pushback. I get it. I get it about people that come on the show. I get messages about people that are very well-known people. Hey, this person scammed me, and this happened or that happened, or they sexually, what do you call it? Harassed me, or whatever. So, but I think it's a great, multifaceted story with a lot of positive attributes. I'm sure. I mean, to me, the physicality is following the energetics, and each moment we're setting energetics down from the pureness of our heart. And if, which is probably very likely, but I don't know this, and I did go to your page, by the way, and I did see this part. I didn't go through it in depth, but I saw what was happening. And I have other friends that do this, by the way, as well. But what I'm saying is that in the uh, in the strong possibility that this individual and those around him, just like you have folks around you, are in alignment with you, it's the perfect representation of this new power of the Trinity. A third energy, you can call it the Holy Spirit, you can call it the golden child or Christ consciousness. There's a third energy that is bringing these things together, you know, and that's cooperating in a minimum equal, most likely even greater capacity. I know many people that we have seen it in their lives, and yeah, I think it's a fantastic story. It's an incredible story. For any of those of you who resonate on the live and the replay, I saw this on the top of your page right before the show, so they can go to your page and click on your GoFundMe.
Yes. Yeah. So I posted a blog on my intergalactic hippie website with this very information, and it's called "Did I Just Get Scammed?" And
Perfect.
then on my
Well, it's good too that you're up front too. Like, I mean, it's like because I like I told you, I probably have 5 or 6 friends that are doing something similar in Africa.
really,
Absolutely. In fact, I can name them. I don't have permission, but I can name them. My grandmother did it for years. I have a real problem with charities uh, because I know how much of the matrix that they are a part of. Uh, and she did this through the Catholic Church. So
mm,
she'd say, "Here's my, I'm sending this money to this little kid," and and I don't know if it was true or not, but it never, even back then, it never mattered to me.
yeah,
Even my friends that say, "Hey, I'm doing this and I'm doing that," uh, it's about what my friends are doing. It was about what my grandmother's doing. It's about what you're doing in this Abdullah, about what he's doing. I mean, it's a, and to me, this is how we break down, deconstruct, and reconstruct the matrix, so to speak, is by going under the radar.
mm,
It's the 99.99% and the connections that we make because they are huge. I mean, can you imagine the energetic life force of you and let's say you and your posse? You say you got 6, 8, 10, 12 people. He's got 8, 10, 12 people. Can you imagine the energetic impact of aligned, heartfelt intentions? It's huge.
it's
So
amazing.
it builds universes. It builds galaxies, solar
Amazing.
systems.
I love what you said about stepping away from like the institutions and doing things differently because I felt such a call to help Abduli, but his needs exceed that which my family is able to comfortably give.
Yeah.
So I thought about this for about a week and a half. I didn't really want to share the story because I didn't want it to become a look at me, look how great I am, I'm donating to Africa type of thing. And I said to Abduli, I have some friends from my old church. I think we could get you your funds quicker if I involve the church.
Yeah.
It didn't feel right in my spirit. And
No.
Abduli himself said, "No, brother, I think we should keep this between you and I." He said, "Third parties can really mess things up." He
Yeah.
said, "I've given my details to a lot of organizations and they take money on our behalf and then divide it amongst
Of course
themselves."
they do. Of course they do.
So
All we
I
got to do is look
thought
at the
that
Clinton
was
Foundation.
amazing. He said that he would rather not have extra help than have it come from somebody that might come in there with their agenda and try to change them. And I would never want to put that on Abduli and his family or his village. he said that we'll trust. He said his words: "You and I will trust God, and we will do this together in God's time."
Yeah. Yeah, and and here's another thing too. I mean, I know when I started out 9 years ago, I was, for some reason, uh, I was in quite a few Nigerian Facebook groups, and that was my initiative. I mean, I was trying to expand and include all continents and so on. So I developed some relationships, and I found out a lot about, in this case, Nigerian. It's Africa, but the the level of conditioning that they had, not to mention their circumstances, their existing situation, was far different than I thought.
Mm.
And I've been a history buff my whole life. The level of impact that the dogma of Christianity had on them, uh, the financial, uh, limitedness in terms of their alternatives, in terms of their choices. I mean, so it's a totally different world. But I do think, too, that the other good thing about stuff like this is the more dots that we can connect, whether it's in the physical or the virtual or both, the better off we're going to be. And really, when you have this type of exchange, as you have had with him, which is really no different than what you're having with me, there is a physicality to it, even though we're not in the same space by 3D linear terms. So there is something about it, and let's face it, if as we go forward, collaboration and co-creation that's our vehicle. It's absolutely our vehicle. Where two or more gather, as the Bible says. It's a new math, and 1 + 1 does not equal 2 anymore. It equals 3. Yeah. I got a meeting. I enjoyed it.
Todd, thank you so much for having me on your show. I appreciate you. This has been fantastic.
And I would encourage you to put your GoFundMe in the Soulology group, because there's a strong, active community there that doesn't necessarily watch these shows, but there's probably 15, 16,000 people active in that group every week. There's 32,000 people in that group, but active. I'm talking about engaged.
Wow.
That's a very high number. And I know that because I multi-stream, and there's many groups that have big numbers that don't have any engagement. And I could educate people on that, but but anyway, it's a good place. I think you'll get some response from it, and I'm sure you'll get some response from the show. And I look forward to collaborating with you again. We can talk about a lot of different things.
Yeah. I look forward to that myself. Thank you again so much, and thank you all for listening. It's been fantastic to meet you virtually, and I hope to see you again real soon.
Right on.